All right. Well, welcome everyone to our August demo day. I will get things started here. Let me share my screen. So since last demo day, a couple releases. There's been a couple new features that were introduced in the customer module and also with sales opportunities. So the recently viewed customer list is now being pruned. So before that would just continue to track your viewed customers forever and always, and we were running into some performance concerns there. So this will now be pruned to only the top 10 most recent viewed customers. And then once you go into a customer, there's been some improvements to opportunities, small improvements. We added a follow-up date field that displays by default, and there is now a quick action for adding a new log entry for that opportunity. So that lets you quickly add a log entry.
I think if you hover on the follow-up date too, it'll give you a little calculation of how far out or how far behind you are. Yep.
Look at that. I didn't even know that, Mike. Thank you. Okay, so that's some improvements to opportunities. Now I'm going to give a quick demo of our progress on AR. There's a few changes that we're still working on here, but things are getting close, so we'll give a quick preview. So in the accounting module, we've already had the payables and receivables cards up here. So as you click the cards, that changes the data table at the bottom to display either AP or AR items. So clicking on receivables, we'll see AR items. We've got them bucketed into due date buckets, and that's wired up with the rows here. So as you click current, that'll give you the current items, items that are 31 to 60 days. You can also introduce custom buckets. I have one here because one of my test cases is from 2024. So you can click define custom and make it whatever you want and select any date range that you like. Future doesn't make a lot of sense, but if we wanted to do just May of 2025, click add tab. So now I have my own little bucketed group here that are items that are due in May of 2025. You can create a new AR entry now. So if I click new AR entry, it will open a new form. I can go through and enter customer information. It's doing validation when you change the customer, so that pulled back the customer name and also set some default values here. If I wanted to just make a miscellaneous entry here, make it not taxable, I can do a lookup of the GL account that I want that to go to, give it a description, and then I make my invoice amount match my item there. And then I should be able to click save, and that just created a new AR entry. And then we'll go pull up an existing AR entry to go through a little more of the detail of the tabs and the layout here. So on this existing AR entry, we've started to formalize.
Hold on real quick, Greg.
Yep, go ahead.
Susie's got her hand up. Susie, you got a question?
Sorry, I didn't see. Go ahead,
Sorry,
Susie.
Good morning. I understand, you're just kind of getting started, but the taxable field, is that going to be wired up for Avalara or what? Because usually the part numbers within Rover designate whether it's taxable or not necessarily me or you as the entry person. So is that,
Right.
I'm assuming that's coming, but I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, so this was a miscellaneous item. Honestly, I need to check and see if there should be any default with an Avalara integration there. So I'll double check there. The line item entry should be setting the taxable based on the part. So in this existing item, there was a part here and the taxable flag was automatically set. It's actually, we'll test that real quick and see if that works as expected. Honestly, I don't know what the taxable default is on Cap 10.
Well, this dev box too most certainly is not doing anything with Avalara, but
and it also, sorry, it would also depend on the state or the customer. There's like a couple different. Again, that's Avalara, so I'm just assuming that'll be tied in at some point.
Sure.
Yeah, it shouldn't even
Tax
be
will be based on how the system is configured. So if it's using Avalara will be enabled. But you made an interesting call out there. The tax flag looks like it's not being set automatically. So we'll take a deeper dive into that.
Yeah, it'd be good to double check on. The AR routine was one of the ones done to use the same logic for the API as in the form. So anything that's being enforced when you're saving it through the form, it should be the case that the same rules are being enforced when you save it here. It's a great call out, a good thing to double check. And certainly, once we've got it into production release candidate, we can push it over and give you access, and you can play with a couple things too there to make sure that's true. But generally speaking, that I would expect to not be something that comes later. Should just be something that is today because of the fact that that API was done to wrap the existing form logic.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you. All right, let me get back to my test item here. All right, so again, just kind of going through the layout here. So we're trying to kind of standardize on these cards. So the collapsible cards will now persist so that you can see the section. Previously, the collapsing section had a label, but it wasn't really a card that kind of broke up the UI. We think this makes the forms look a little easier to follow. They're a little less noisy than some of the other forms. And they also, they're responsive and they adjust to the screen. So as I collapse sections, it's going to pull the other cards up. So you're only viewing the cards that you're interested in. There's currently a hotkey wired up too, so I could collapse all the cards and then I could expand them all. And then this should be pretty responsive down to a phone size screen. So if you're on a small device, everything should be pretty viewable and look pretty clean. I'm sure some additional adjustments that we'll make there. We're also still working on this menu to kind of make that work a little better on smaller screens. So on a larger screen that breaks out into large tabs. We're still playing with some of the UI there. But that's the AR tab, then the line item tab. That will have an expanding section. So for a given line item, you would expand it to get into more of the details around that line item. So it would include distributions, rep details. You can add additional rep details just like you would in ARE. Register history. So this, I think, is a little cleaner view than what it looked like in ARE. So I think we're also working on some adjustments to the UI here, but just trying to kind of make, we have some different options available to us than we did in the desktop form. So that's what we're going with here. And this should be pretty responsive as well. It looks like that one's actually giving us a scroll bar instead of a stack. So we have some adjustments to make there still. Then shipping addresses, we have some cleanup to do on the shipping address street details. And then I think we're going to break out the card on file data into its own tab. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to be in the ship addresses. So that will be moved. And then if you had attachments, they would show up there. Any questions on AR entry to this point? All right. Well, then I will hand it over to Alex, who will give us a preview. Oh, Susie has another question. Go ahead.
Of course, I'm full of them. Will we still have the ability to load in an existing one to like copy an existing record?
Yes. So I have not recently tested that.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's fine. I just was curious because use that hit miss.
There should be an option for that actually. So from an existing AR item, there'll be a quick action for load. So if I do that, that should pop up a new item. And it looks like it did not. So that's something for me to review. That's the idea. You would have a quick action here that you could load from.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Yep, thank you. Okay, Alex, I will send it over to you then.
Right. To share my screen, and I'll just note that these changes associated with the AP side of things aren't quite as far along as the AR, and we're still kind of, as the AR UI design evolves, those changes will eventually flow back to AP as well. So kind of you'll notice some discrepancies in how some things look, and those will be addressed, and we're going to make sure that we have kind of a common view between the two as much as possible. So kind of as Greg mentioned, the AP side here looks pretty similar to AR. So we can go ahead and put up, say, this bank charges AP item. And here we have the view with the same collapsible sections. And so here's the form as of right now, and we've still got some UI adjustments to make here and some conversations to go through. But the initial design here, no line items on this AP item, but we do have some related items. And one of the things that it did come up earlier, and now we kind of have a common way of doing this in a lot of places, was that the order of these items isn't necessarily strictly necessary for the functionality of things, but you can you may want to change the order or move things around. You can sort it, you can filter it. So just if you want to get like a different view on things, you can kind of do some of that stuff, get a little better idea of what's going on. We've got the aging register items, and kind of as mentioned, I think that we'll probably want to make this look a lot similar to how the AR looks, just for that common look and feel. And we have the attachments here. And kind of likewise, we can go ahead and create a new AP item through and enter a vendor number. And so this kind of shows too that all of a sudden the vendor name shows up and a couple defaults loaded up. So we're validating against the back end there to get some more information and set some defaults. I don't know if we necessarily need to fill out an entire AP item here to show it saving, but that is pretty much the general look and feel here. Just as Greg had shown in some places now, we do have the common lookup feature here. So if you want to look up a GL account, you don't have to type it in or know it off the top of your head. You can even select between lookups, so you can type a search and see if things match that as well, to make things a little easier here. So yeah, I think that's kind of the current state of AP. A little bit more in progress, I think, than the AR, but we're catching up.
How did you just do that lookup again? I missed it.
Oh yeah, yeah. So and I think this might
okay.
not
Just a little search thing. Oh, cool.
Yeah, this might not be available quite yet in the test and production yet, but for a lot of fields now, we're going to have, if there are lookups defined on the back end, and this
Very
field
cool.
is tied to a reference file somewhere else, you'll see this lookup button, and it'll let you kind of pick between any lookups that do exist on that fdict file, and if only one exists, you're just going to get that one option.
That's awesome.
Corinne, do you know where you define lookups on the back end?
I think I've seen it somewhere before. For the POS, I've seen some lookups, but I've never used it.
Definitely have. That's okay. Anybody else have the answer before I help her out? I know somebody in this room knows where lookups
I'm
get
sure he
defined
said
in
it.
Rover.
He said it was in the
Routing.
FDICT. Yeah.
Bingo, bango.
Okay. Also, it's just about AP. We have, do we have vendor like lookup coming soon? Maybe, I guess, just because along with AR we have customer already, right? But maybe AP we would have vendor, because this is.
Yeah, the vendor creation and edit form is next on our list. So
Oh,
after
cool.
AR and AP,
Awesome. Looks good.
vendor will be coming up.
Yeah, I think we have a project right now that would love to see this. So cool.
Okay. And one other thing I should have pointed out, maybe, so you'll notice that the new payable and the payable item that he opened for edit are both showing up as tabs. You can have AR and AP items open at the same time. So if you go back to the dashboard and we choose an AR item and we open one of those, it'll come up in a tab, and then you can just go back and forth between things, and you can have as many of those open as you like. I say that we probably need to set some limitation there, but there's nothing enforced at the moment. Okay. Any other questions or feedback on AR and AP?
Bonnie's got a change history question. No, change history still needs to be redone for presentation on the web, but I think the interest in doing that is growing more and more. Yeah, Andrew certainly brings that up pretty regularly now. And he actually worked on a new API endpoint earlier this week to make it easier to get change history out of the system using the newer model for purposes of display on things like the web. So we still have that reminder on the customer's page, I think, that it was taken away and will be coming back at some point in the future. That was switched back when the way change history was managed within Rover was updated to work more universally. It's a great question. And I think a pulse check from the room on how big of an impact that would make for people to have that sooner than later, I think would be great. I know we had a customer asking for it on the BI side, which was part of why some work happened to make it easier to get the change history through API calls for now, to get the data into BI. But I think it'd be nice to have the interface side handled for the web app too.
Susie, any thoughts there on AR and AP, how important change history is?
Oh, extremely. Yeah, that was a great question. I was thinking earlier when you were on one of the tabs in the register history, and I was kind of like, okay, well, then I was assuming at some point there would be the change history, but yeah, it's used a lot. We put in notes for changes all the time, especially on our stuff. You know, I'm sure customers do too.
Yeah, Susie,
So
what
that
kind of
would be
notes do you put
helpful.
in there? Maybe pause to explain that to the group.
Sure. If there's a license count change or a part number, maybe we change something for customer temporarily, for certain reasons, we put notes in there so that we could go back in 2 months and say, why is this doing this? And then you go back and, oh, that's right, there was an email or there was a request to do this. So lots of we did keep some details in there, so that's great.
Thank you for running through it.
Okay, any other thoughts or questions before we close?